I was going down the street, another car was coming, and at the very last minute, he turned into my lane as if he was making a left turn in front of me. And the next thing I know, I was looking down at the top of my car. And I realized that I could see, like in 360 degrees around this tunnel of light whooshed in, and I heard it and I felt it. The quality of the air around me changed. And it just suddenly started feeling really sweet and soft, like love. And the farther I got in to this tunnel of light, all of the burdens and worries and concerns that I had been carrying around just fell away. My name is Ellyn Dye. In 1985, I had a near-death experience. I was adopted as an infant. And my father was pretty harsh and critical, and I was extremely sensitive. So I took all of it extremely personally and internalized all of it, and basically grew up with the idea of having to twist myself into a pretzel to please everybody. When I was 12, my adopted mother died of cancer. And the night she died in the hospital, I was asleep, and I woke up and she was standing at the bottom of my bed. And she told me that she had to leave, that she loved me, and that everything would be okay. I processed that, as a 12-year-old, and I got up and I walked out into the living room where my grandmother was. She was staying with my brother and me. And I said, "Mommy just died." And she says, "Oh, no, no." And the phone rang, and it was my father calling from the hospital to say that she had died. So at the age of 12, my mother put me firmly on the path of the seeker, because I realized there was a lot more going on in the universe than I was learning in Sunday school, and I was going to find out what it was. So I started just inhaling everything I could get my hands on about metaphysics and spirituality at the time. And that lasted, I just continued to do that. When I was in high school, I kept being accused of sneaking out to meet boys, but I was really sneaking out to go to seances. I went to college, I got into my 20s, and I'm working, and things just, did not go well for me. One thing after another, I ended up in secretarial jobs. It wasn't what I saw as my path. So I was very unhappy because I couldn't kind of break out of it. I'd see my friends get married and have kids, and I'd wonder what was wrong with me, and this, that, and the other thing. And by the time I was in my early 30s, I really felt like a complete failure. But I had all this metaphysical information. I hadn't incorporated the principles into my life. I just had them in my head. One night, I was going down the street and headed into an intersection, and another car was coming, and at the very last minute, he turned into my lane as if he was making a left turn in front of me. And I had enough time to realize that he was coming into my lane and that we were going to hit, but I didn't really have enough time to do anything about it. And the next thing I know, I was looking down at the top of my car. I didn't feel any impact. I didn't feel any pain. I just suddenly was looking down at the top of my car, and it took a minute. It's like, what am I looking at now? And I realized that I could see, like in 360 degrees around I saw the other guy get out of the car and walk over to my car, and I thought, oh, isn't that nice? He's looking to see if I'm okay. And he reached in and turned my headlights off. But while I was watching this, and I lost interest, and I thought, there ought to be a tunnel of light somewhere. And as I said that, it kind of whooshed in, and I heard it, and I felt it. The quality of the air around me changed. And it just suddenly started feeling really sweet and soft, like love. I didn't have to, like consciously move toward it. It kind of pulled me in. And the farther I got in to this tunnel of light, the stronger this feeling of joy and bliss and happiness and peace just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. And I could feel all of the burdens and worries and concerns that I had been carrying around just fell away. I got to the end, and I was in this atmosphere of bright white. It was like I gave this giant sigh of relief because I felt like I was finally where I was supposed to be. It was like, this is what I'm made of. This is where I belong. This is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm made of. I never fit on planet Earth, but I fit here. It's like if a wave comes up on the beach, and then it recedes, and it leaves little spatterings of drops of water in little, holes in the beach. And I feel like I had been one of those drops of water, in a dry, harsh environment that I didn't belong in for so long. And then suddenly the ocean came and grabbed me and pulled me back. As I was feeling that and just luxuriating in it, in this love and peace, and just feeling embraced by the air around me, I noticed this commotion over here, and I looked over, and there were all these people. It must have been like 50 or 100 people. And they're all like, hi, how are you? And I started recognizing them. And of course, the first one I saw was my adoptive mother, who had died when I was 12. Both my grandfathers, both my grandmothers at that point, a couple of aunts and uncles who had passed. And it was all like, oh, we're so happy to see you. We have watched over you, every single day. And, we're so proud of you. And I was like, there's nothing to be proud of. It's like, I'm a total screw up. I haven't accomplished anything. And they said, no, we're so proud of you because it's very hard there. And just getting up every day and doing your best and keeping your sense of humor, which is huge, it is amazing. And they said, you haven't known that we were there, but we have celebrated with you for all of the little triumphs that you've had, even though you don't seem to recognize them as triumphs, but you've had some. And we've been there with our arms around you when you were despairing. It really was amazing. And then I realized, I started seeing some of the other faces. And there was this man there, and I knew exactly who he was, even though I had never met him before in this life. and it was my biological father. Now, I was adopted as an infant. I had no information whatsoever because the adoption records were sealed. I had no information at all. And here's this guy, and I know immediately that this was my biological father. And he knew me, and I knew him, and he knew my adoptive family that were there, and everybody knew everybody, and his parents were there. So, I was pondering that, and I was saying hello to everybody, and it was a big party, and it felt like it went on for a long time. And at some point I thought, I'm really getting tired of this whiteness because, as humans, we're used to depth and we're used to color. And I said, I really wish this looked more like a landscape or something. And as I said that, it totally changed. And it was as if a hand came up and with paints, and painted the landscape. And it was sort of like this rolling hills in a park. And there were trees and flowers and bushes and birds and butterflies and all these cats and dogs running around, including all of the ones that I had who had passed, and they all came and said hi to me. I realized that although I really wanted to stay and talk to my relatives, I was there to see somebody else, and I didn't know who. I saw this path that led down into some woods, and I followed that. The colors of the grass, the color of the flowers and the trees and the birds, everything were colors that we don't even have on this planet because they're so bright and vibrant and alive, and everything was alive. The grass was alive, the trees were alive, the flowers were alive. And I came to this little clearing, and there was a little hill, and at the top of the hill there was like this gazebo, and I could see that there were people inside, and I thought, well, I guess those are the people I'm supposed to see. So I walked up there, and there were 12 beings in there, and they were all very tall, but they weren't they weren't scary. You would think that tall would be very intimidating, but they were not, because they just oozed love. It's like it came out of their pores, and it just enveloped me. And I stood in the circle with them around me, and for the longest time, they just kind of beheld me. All of my own shame and, self-judgment came pouring out, but they were not judging me. I was judging me, but they were not judging me. They could see deep into my soul, and they knew everything I had ever thought, everything I had done, everything I hadn't done, everything I wished I had done, everything I wished I hadn't done, everything. And they loved every bit of it. It was very uncomfortable because we're not used to either that kind of scrutiny or anybody like seeing us that clearly or that deeply here, let alone loving us that unconditionally. It was very uncomfortable at the beginning. And then they started to talk to me. I kind of said, okay, what was all that? It's like, what is the meaning of all of that? Why do we go through all of that? Why? Why? Why is Earth so hard? And so they showed me everything. I mean, I felt like I was there for, several years. And, they showed me, where, how humanity sprang up and why souls decided to come to Earth and why souls decided to come back to Earth and where we were going. And they showed me all of my past lives. We've all been kings and queens. We've all been scullery maids and serfs. As I say, we've all been saints and we've all been serial killers. And and we've tried it all on. We have experienced all of it. So after I saw all of that, they showed me where we're going to, like the golden age of humanity. And I'm like, okay, I'm for that. Um, and I said, but I have to ask you. I mean, my childhood was pretty awful in a lot of ways because I was criticized. I didn't fit in. It seemed I could never do anything right. And, I wasn't physically abused, but I was certainly emotionally abused. And, now that I understand that I guess I set these things up in my life, why would I do that? Was I a masochist? And they said, no, you were determined to master self-love in this lifetime because the things you wanted to do later in this life, you would have to have self-love. And you had tried. This is not an easy lesson. And you had tried many times in many lifetimes to master this, but you hadn't been able to. So this time you were determined that you were going to master it or die trying. And I said, well, yeah, it almost killed me. It was bad. and they said, I said, but wouldn't I have put myself in a family that would affirm me and support me and tell me how wonderful I was and how I could do anything and that kind of an atmosphere? And they said no, because then you would spend the rest of your life looking for love from outside yourself rather than being forced to ignite the spark of self-love within you. Because when you don't feel like you're getting love or validation from anybody else outside, the only person you have left is yourself, and you've got to find it in there. You lit the spark of self-love, yourself, although you hadn't integrated it completely into your life by this time. And I'm like, oh, okay. But since I did that, I really do not want to go back because, people are mean. It doesn't feel like there's any love on that planet at all. And trying to do anything is like walking through hip-deep molasses or peanut butter. And I just, it's like, I'm not going back and you can't make me. And they said, that's fine. You don't have to go back. You have free will. You are a divine, powerful being. If you don't want to go back, you don't have to. And just as I started to relax into that, I hear, let us tell you what you can accomplish if you go back. Let us show you that. I woke up in the emergency room and I started to swear because I could not believe that I had ended up back in my body. And it felt like I had tried to put an elephant into a Coca-Cola can. Because while I was out of my body, I was this big, expansive being, all of myself. And suddenly, I had to compress all of that down into this tiny thing. So it felt awful. I was back in the sludge. I was back in the molasses. And the nurse came over. And I'm like, why am I here? And she's like, you were in a car accident. And I'm like, no, why am I here? You're in the hospital because you were in a car accident. It's funny because everyone wants to hear about what happened during those 5 minutes of, heaven, when in fact the real work starts after you have the NDE and you have to try to integrate the new perspective into your life. I was very lucky. I think in years since then, I've realized I must have negotiated during that time that I don't remember. I think I negotiated a few things that, like, if I'm going back, this has to happen. And one of those was that I don't want to have to deal with a lot of physical injuries. And I didn't. I had a concussion, and I had knocked my knees into the uh, front of the car and hurt the cartilage, but it wasn't bad, really. Um, so I recovered physically, but I had this like expanded awareness of what life is and what life is supposed to be and what we're supposed to be. And I, could only compare it negatively with what was going on in the outer world. And I was like, oh my God, how can I be back here? I mean, I really literally would go to bed at night praying to die and wake up disappointed in the morning. Right after that, people started giving me things of lion motifs. And I had a cat, but I didn't collect cat things. I always loved lions, but I didn't collect lion things. But all of a sudden, people were giving me books and jewelry and pictures and statues, all kinds of stuff with lions. And I couldn't understand why. One day I walked into this shop that had greeting cards, and they had these cards for each of the zodiac signs. And I looked at the card for Leo, and there was a picture like from chest up of a lion with hands. So holding things and an orb and a scepter, actually. And all of a sudden, it was if these beings of light that I met with during my NDE had been like wearing sheets. And in my mind, I could see the sheets fall off. And these, 12 or 13-foot beings were lion people. In that second that I saw this picture and I had this recognition, my knees completely buckled. I went straight down on the floor in the shop and I was like, oh my God, those were lion people. What do I do with this information? So that took a while to get used to that idea. But what started to happen was I started to have communication with these lion beings. And, they slowly started guiding me as long as I would listen. It wasn't that they were slow, it was I was slow. But they started guiding me in how to integrate everything that I had learned into my life. Which really, I had to change my whole personality. They have stuck with me this whole time, and they're very present in my life. They're present in my coaching, and they've been with me ever since, with a very close relationship. Trying to basically, change old habits and personality traits to fit with my newer perspective that it really is all about love, and one of the most important things is self-love. And I really have come to believe that if we had more self-love on this planet, it would be such a better world. Because when you love yourself, you don't have to convince other people of your viewpoint. You don't have to argue with people about things. You're not defensive all the time. You're not, you have trust in yourself and the universe, and you will be provided for. So you don't have to like step on other people to climb up the ladder. There's so many things that you don't have to do anymore when you really have self-love. And so that's one of the things that I've really worked on for the last 40 years, was really learning what it means to have self-love. And so my biggest message to anybody right now is cultivate self-love. Not selfish, not love at the expense of other people, but loving who you are, embracing who you are, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We all have all those parts, and they're all parts. Embrace all of those and love those parts, and those parts of ourselves. We can love and accept those parts in other people and allow other people to have those parts and to be who they are. Really, it changes your life when you can move from not knowing who you are and being a people pleaser to knowing who you are and loving, accepting yourself, and loving, accepting others.